Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Why Do I Keep Doing This to Myself? Um, we're revisiting the UV Flying V because I've got a little bit of things to correct with the electronics inside of it, and I've got a couple other things that I want to do for the projects, but we'll talk about that. But I had a little bit of show and tell to take care of first. Number one, this arrived today, so I've got another piece of merch to wear while I'm doing videos. And let me scoot up here a bit and excuse my fingers. Whoa. Sorry for the ultra zoom there. Um, I also wanted to thank Brian for sending these over. I'm trying something different with the mics. I appreciate that. These seem to be pretty decent and it's easier to deal with than the clips. What we are dealing with, and let me switch you to the overhead here. I've already taken, I already looked at the electronics and in the process of doing so kind of disassembled it because I needed to hit up the Discord and the Hive Mind for just a little bit of advice on what I had done wrong. That volume pot, all we've got is one volume knob on this, and it wasn't acting as a volume knob. So either I burnt it when I was soldering it, and I'll need to replace the volume knob, or more likely, I soldered things wrong. So that's what we're going to be correcting. There also, I figured out why I was trying to solder it in that tiny little hole there, and that's because there was not enough wire to get these things to sit up properly. That ground wire, for instance, that's going here is way too short. So we're going to be taking some of those wires off. The wires for the jack, in my mind, especially the yellow one here, are also way too short. So we're just going to out and out replace those. The jack itself is nothing special, but that'll be a future project. I don't have a pure tone right now, and I don't know if it needs one. The jack itself was working fine. It was tight enough, so I don't think I'm going to replace that until it becomes a problem. So the couple of things that we're going to do there, I'm going to just probably do some cleanup work before I actively start soldering things again, and we'll get the wires all cut to the proper length. The other thing that I did want to do for this, the guitar has a plastic nut, which was kind of not cut very well to begin with, and it was just cheap plastic. I could feel it when I was trying to do it, and I switched to nines on this guitar because that's what I wanted on here, and I think it had tens on it to begin with, so the nut isn't even cut properly for nines. What I did get myself was some of the Geiger red bone nuts in the proper size. We will remeasure before I take the nut out because and then the third thing that I wanted to do, because it is a flying V, but I don't care to use straps all the time. I just sit down. Playing a flying V in a sitting position isn't always that great. I did notice on a couple of the Epiphones that I've seen online, they had friction tape on the one side so you could actually set it on your leg and it would hold still. So I bought some of this and we'll measure, cut it to the right size. I'll have to see where it sits on my leg and we'll put that on there and see if that just gives me enough so that I can play it comfortably. Because I would like to play it a little more often. The pickup in it's really nice. I have all of my soldering equipment off to this side over here. You guys can't see it, but I'm going to get things started. We're going to get that soldering gun warming up. What I need to do is disconnect this ground wire. I don't think on this little hook where another spring would go is necessarily the best place for that to be hanging. So we're going to take that off. I'm probably going to solder it onto the flat part in there, and I'm going to scratch that up a little bit so it gets a little better contact. I haven't had any grounding issues with it, but we're going to fix that. So that, and on the jack, which you can't see, I'll try and move the camera when we're working on that, but we're going to get that ground wire out of there first. I have my Boxo wires so I can cut a proper length. I'm going to have to balance getting enough wire so that I can work on it outside of the body with making sure that I don't put too much in so that I can't get everything back in that tiny little hole without causing issues. So see if we can't get this ground wire out of there and off. And I did also get myself one of the, I don't know if you guys can see this, that's one of the exhaust fans with the filters on it, and this one also came with helping hands on it. So this should be a help to me, I hope. Or it's just more expensive ways for me to suck at soldering. It's been an interesting week in YouTube videos in the community because everybody's had videos out that coincide with stuff that I want to do, which includes soldering a volume pot. John over at Smoke Eater Guitars has a video out about that right now. Ted over at Ted Talks Guitars was working on finishing his StewMac body, Stewie, which is coming along rather nicely. And I'm going to be finishing a bass kit in the very near future. So that was some good info for me. And Malachi, too, on his channel, was also replacing an output jack. Similar, some soldering work. He had his own set of problems with that, too, and I feel you, brother. Not the greatest. All right, so I have a wire off. I'm also going to try and get the remnants of my previous fun off of the back of this pot. Start melting. I should probably turn this on for all the fumes, right? There it goes. I've got noise filters on. And looking at my mic thing, it looks like it's not picking up the fan. Fan is doing what it's supposed to do. Just want to get that big clump off of there. And see if I can't get some of this off of there. All right, got a little bit off of there. Now we're going to see if we can disconnect. Burnt myself already because, duh, I was just heating up the pot. It's hot. That's what the helping hands are supposed to be for. I need to get the wires off of that jack, or, you know what? I did get myself another shelf, so I have more room. There's never enough. If this is going to take more than a minute, I'm not going to leave the soldering iron on because you don't want to burn out your tip. There we go. I just need that held up a little bit so I can get those wires off of there. All right, so I know that the yellow from the pickup goes to the leftmost pot. That I think I can leave on. The red is what I need off so I can get that jack out of there. Perfect. All right, so now we're going to take the jack out. So we've got our jack. I want to get, so the yellow wire goes to the thing. The red was the one that went to the middle lug. And finally for the yellow wire, let's get you off that jack. Perfect. All right, we're going to switch this off, clean our tip off, and then put it back in the holster to sit for a little bit while we cut our wires a little longer than what we currently have. Red was the hot, that one to the middle, the yellow is going to be the ground. All right, so the tip to the signal is the hot, and I'm assuming that's the one on the outside, and the ground. All right, so my yellow is my ground wire, the red is the hot. These are not standard colors, but like I said, I'm keeping what I knew. So let's strip some wire. Just so you guys know, I think I say this every video, I am learning. I don't claim to be good at any of this, so this is mainly for me to learn for myself and also for folks to learn from my mistakes or learn along with me. I definitely would not feel comfortable working on anybody else's guitars, but mine, yeah, I'm enjoying learning. Gonna turn the soldering iron back on to heat back up. If I had more room in this cavity, I'd probably get a little better quality wiring than what this is, but it is what it is. So we need to get that yellow wire off. The yellow wire goes there, red wire from the jack goes to the middle, that gets to the pot. I don't think this was very well set up to begin with, so yeah, that wire's not real great either, but that's from the pickup, so there's not much I can do about it. What I do want to do is clean up what I've got here a little bit. Towel over here so we don't get any solder on the finish. Just trying to get this glob of solder off this wire so we can just use it to tin it and get it back into shape. Ooh, can feel the wire heating up. Soldering tool is off. What I want to do is get those red and white wires out of the way. This is a 4-wire pickup, but I do not have a push-pull pot, so I won't be splitting. So all I need is the ground and the hot. But what I do want to do is get them out of the way. So I'm going to try and put them down here so we can comfortably get everything through there and hopefully shrink wrap that down and make things just a little bit neater. A little bit of smoke, but that's what the fan is for. Very hot. All right, that's not going anywhere. Perfect. That looks nice and neat. Let's get this thing out of the way. One less thing in my way down here. Now, we will see about getting ground wire back up there, I'm gonna take my file and just scratch up a little bit of that, and we'll see if we can ground right there. A little bit of the plastic still hanging on the end there. Set that off to the side, put the cover back on, tin the tip of the soldering iron again. I had it off for a bit, so it's taking a second. We'll make a cut here till it gets warm enough to start doing anything with. See if we can't tin the tip of that wire. But we'll be able to introduce a little bit of heat. A second to see if it actually took. Clean the tip off again. And we're going to turn the tip off actually because I got to feed the wires for the jack through. It's a nice shiny solder. I'm hoping that means good things. You guys can let me know. All right, let's get our new hot and ground. I'm sorry guys, I should try talking because I know this is not the most exciting thing to watch with no sound. I can't remember if that was Sparky that told me about these fans. If so, thank you. It's working great. All right, now we'll tin the yellow wire. All right, to put a timestamp on this, I got to double check how everything's going for USA Hockey. I think the women's team won gold. I don't know about the men. I know they're playing for it, I believe, but I would have to double check. I just don't follow hockey as much as some other folks in the community do. All right, success. We have wires on the other end. So there's a little bit, I probably could have cut a little bit longer, but after I get these on the jack and put them back through, we should be good to go. So I think I want to try and get a little bit of that crud off of there. And I'm going to take the pot out of my helping hand here for the moment. All right. Did we get that? Yeah, we did. All right, now let's get our ground wire up here. Oh, Brant, I'm with you. I think I need to get myself a set of those jeweler's glasses. Let's see if I can't get that just to stick a little bit. How are we doing? Good. All right. There it is. Got our jack. Got our jack plate. And we have our number 11 metric socket because this is a Chinese guitar, so of course it was metric. But we'll tighten this up once I have it back through. I don't have a camera shot to show you what's going on, but the jack doesn't seem to want to fit back in there properly. Probably something I could have taken a Dremel to, might in the future if I put a pure tone jack on there. I threw the screws on the floor just now by moving that towel, so I'll find those while we're offline as well. Got one screw. Let me put that in. Or hold that thought, guys. Let's find that screw. There it is. It's a handy dandy magnet. Very handy for finding screws on a floor which has a pattern to it, which makes things almost impossible to find. Shop magnets. Don't leave home without them. All right, we have a jack, we have wires. So now we just need to solder up the pot. So on this pot, we have, I don't know if you guys can see that. This one, you can either wire it to, man, I really need to try and clean that up a little bit more. If there is an easier way to get solder off of here, you guys can let me know. Yeah, I've got this. I've got to get myself the good, this is lead-free solder, which, as I found out from you guys, is not the best for this work. The lead solder fluxes at a lower point, so yeah, I think the best I'm going to do is to spread this out smooth. This lug is going to get bent in. I'm going to take a quick break here and re-look at that wiring diagram. I'm going to have to move stuff just a little bit so I can see what I'm doing. We're going to have to get the pot down lower and also still in the helping hand. So the red from the jack is going to go to the middle. The yellow from the jack is going to go to the pot. We can probably solder that over here, and we're going to need solder there. The green ground is going to go to the pot as well, probably the back side, because I think that's how it's going to sit in there. And then we'll worry about the pickup after we get these three set. Perfect, not elegant. Is it great? No. Should it work? God, I hope so, unless I get a cold solder joint. And get our red wire. I'm going to bend that in just a little bit too. Oh, there's some leftover solder on there. Haha. Yep. So that spat a little bit of solder onto my hand. Ah, so tiny and such bad eyesight. All right, we have that wire. Let's get the ground soldered up. See if we can get the helping hand to actually give me a helping hand. So we're gonna swap which helping hand has the pot and see if we can't use this to hold the ground wire where it's supposed to go. This is guaranteed to be some of the clumsiest soldering work that you're ever going to see. Yes, it's attached. Is it elegant? Again, no. Let's get our green ground wire out from under the red, because it's got to come around the back. All right, let's see if we can hold down that ground wire to the pot. All right, so we have that. Then finally, the pickup wires. That is super thin wire. Not ideal. Wilkinson, you could get a little better with those. All right, it's connected. Let's hope that's a good connection. You guys can let me know, how do you guys practice for this stuff? Because I did practice offline a little bit with like a bottle cap and some spare wire, but that's a far cry from trying to fit multiple things onto one pot. All right, let me see if I can get this last ground wire on there. All right, we have connections to everything. I'm going to shut this off, and we're going to bring out the honeytone and plug it in and just make sure that I have any kind of noise before I start putting that back together. I will be optimistic and hope that it's good. Let's tip this up just a little so we can get to that. Make sure the volume is turned up. It's alive. All right. I have managed to do that. All right, we're going to tip this up facing me. Sorry that you guys can't see this, but this is just the easiest way for me to, oh, well, you can kind of see it. Get this back through here. We can get that to thread. We should be in business. All right, everything is connected back up. Let's try one more time and just make sure. Very out of tune, but very working. So is it pretty? No. Is it professional? No. Does it work? So am I happy with it? Yeah. Oh, actually, let's actually make sure it's working like a volume knob, because that was the whole reason we had for this. Actually working like a volume knob is supposed to. So now it's correct. Awesome. And let's see if we can button this up. You know what? I don't think I have that super tiny Allen wrench out either, which I'm going to need to put the knob back on. But you know what, guys? I'll do that off camera. You've seen people put volume knobs on. It's not that exciting. let's take a look at where this sits if I'm in plane position. So yeah, right about the middle of it. I don't have a good way to hold this in the plane position, and that camera is really, really close. I need to get myself a way to hold this upright. There we go. Put you straight up and down. I'm gonna try and get one of those strips out. I'm probably gonna have to cut it probably in half because I'm just gonna want it to be in the middle. Yeah, basically if I cut it in half, we're gonna be good. Just gonna try and make that a straight cut though. So we have, that's the plain side. We are gonna try and fit that square in the middle because that's where it's gonna hit my leg. I don't think that's gonna look bad. It's not perfectly straight, but you know what? I'm gonna be okay with it because it is just for me. And honestly, if I think about it later, I can probably try and trim that up at a later date or repeat this because I think that should be pretty good. That actually feels like it's going to work pretty well. Yeah, it's not sliding off my leg. That's doing everything we need it to. All right, guys. You know what? Go back to the phone. So I don't know if you can see, we've got everything. It sits very nicely on my leg so I can play this properly now. In fact, we'll probably do that. Meet me over there in just a couple minutes. All right, as promised, we're just going to do a little bit of playing around on here, and then I'll just do a couple final thoughts for this part of the video because we're going to come back to this. It does need to set up. I was just playing around with it a little bit. Sorry about that. This nut is not great. For one, I do think it needs a little work on the neck. Check the relief, everything else. I'm not going to polish up the frets because I am trying to save these strings. They barely have any playing time on them. If I do have to do anything with the nut, I've got another set in my wish list of the exact same type because I kind of like these silly glow-in-the-dark strings for this silly guitar. So we don't have positions to go through, and honestly, I don't do a whole lot of clean tone playing on this, so this is pretty much what it's going to be used for. So it does need a little work. And now that I can turn the volume down on it, holy cow, it actually works. Before it just oscillated a little bit. So I'm happy with it. The soldering work was not the best. If you came here to see good soldering work, I apologize. It's something I'm going to get better at as I go along. Going to have to. But given the constraints of working in that space, trying to do things for the first time, and the help from the community, thank you for that, I think we're going to be in good shape. So that's probably going to close out part one of the adventure with the Flying V. I also have to get used to playing it down here now, now that I don't have to do the old classical position with it, which honestly doesn't feel bad either. I just don't like it because the output jack is right where your leg sits. It's not great. That might be a future project. Maybe put a boat jack on the back and just move that. With that being said, we'll see you next time. We're going to work on the nut and the setup, and hopefully that'll be it for this one. Catch you later, guys.